So where are we going to begin? The beginning, right? Reb Shlomo used to say, there's so much in the Parshiot, just jump in anywhere. It happens to be my Bar Mitzvah Parsha, which actually is not the Parsha that we read of the week of my Bar Mitzvah, but because we didn't want to make the celebration during the 9 days, so we made the Bar Mitzvah the Shabbos before Rosh Chodesh. And let me not tell you about how great I did at my Bar Mitzvah. It was a good lesson. My brother should be well. He did a 45-minute shekel. Shekel is like 45 minutes about Torah. Whole thing in Gemara and the commentaries and everything, and he did it by heart on top of that. And so when my Bar Mitzvah was coming around, we had the same Rebbe. So he gives me a 10-minute about Torah. So I said, give me like my brother, like 45 minutes, So he said, first learn this, and then we'll do more. Okay. Yeah, this was like 8 pages or whatever. So I remember the topic. In any case, so I had a pretty good memory. I was able to memorize things and so on. So I just kept on, did the first page, the second page, went up to the 8th page, and I had a couple of pages left. And I just kept on putting it off, and it was already Friday afternoon before the Bar Mitzvah. And I was too wound up to do the last 2 pages. So I went to a couple of people, and I arranged that when I get to a certain point in the speech, start singing, because it's not unusual, in many communities, whether when a chosn is talking or when a bar mitzvah boy is talking, they'll start singing in the middle and interrupt him. Okay, so I told them exactly where, when I get to that point. And then at the Kiddush, I get up to say my Dvar Torah, and I get to that point, and I start going, like, so I look at these people, and I say, no. And they say, what? I said, no. They say, what do you want? Continue. And I say, start singing. And they say, oh, you want us to start singing? They said that out loud. And they started singing. So it was...
So you had a lifetime of making up for that?
I've had, well, I don't know if I've made up for it, but yeah. In any case, for such a disaster that Marilyn Monroe actually committed suicide on my bar mitzvah. Not that there's any connection, I think because she wasn't invited, In any case. So, Parshiot Matot Massei. Parshiot Matot Massei. So it starts off in the second verse of chapter 30. Everybody has the place. Here's another place where it's pretty evident that whoever put in the chapter numbers didn't quite know either it was a Gentile, which is possible because there were, during the times of the guilds, Jews weren't allowed to be members of the guild, or it was somebody who was pretty ignorant because you see he started chapter 30 in the last verse in the previous parsha.
Why did they keep it?
Once, it's like once it's out there in the print, then you would end up with, with different. Okay, so Vayidaber Moshe Rashi Hamatot. So Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to the heads of the tribes. Zev Korn, Shalom Aleichem, Malka, Ayelet. Okay, Yaakov. So he spoke to the leaders of the tribes, Livnei Yisrael, literally to the children of Israel. Okay. Lemo saying, Zeh hadavar asher tzivah Hashem, this is what God commanded. We're going to come back to the pasuk in a couple of minutes. We'll just read a few more verses. Ish ki yido neder l'Hashem, a person who makes an oath to God, or he shavash shvuah, or he also takes an oath. Le'asor isa, to make something prohibited to him. Al nafsho, he takes on this prohibition upon his soul. Lo yachel dvaro, he may not profane his words. Kechol hayotze mipiv ya'aseh. Exactly as he promised, that is what he is to do. Then the parsha goes on into talking about a woman taking an oath, and there are times where her husband or her father can annul it right away if they wish, but if they don't annul it, so then the oath is a completely valid oath, and she has to live by it, and so on. Okay, so we've had the matter of an oath show up in the Torah before. Do you remember where?
Not so long ago.
Not so long ago, that's good.
That's all I remember.
Anybody else? By a Nazir, right? A Nazirite takes an oath of being a Nazir. And the Ishbitzer basically explains what is an oath. A person takes an oath. Let's say he says, like the way Rashi explains it, he says, for example, he takes an oath that he's not going to eat certain food, or that he's not going to do a certain thing, right? That becomes like a mitzvah for him. In other words, he's not allowed to profane what he said. He must do as he said, unless he goes to have the oath annulled, which we'll talk about in a minute, okay? So, the Ishbisser says that an oath, that this mitzvah of taking an oath is, in a certain sense, is like a blank mitzvah card. In other words, if you feel that for purposes of serving Hashem, you need to take on a certain practice. Like, for example, there was a big Rav in Montreal that one of his children died in infancy, and he took an oath that he wouldn't eat fish. You know, he took it upon himself to hold him not to have fish. And I don't know if he did it as a full-fledged oath, or if he said b'li neder. But in any case, even though, like, normally fish is one of the Shabbos foods and so on, he didn't have any. Did he keep that for the rest of his life? I don't know. He may have, I don't know the details. But in any case, I've heard of people, like, something happens in their lives, and they feel that they need to take on some additional restriction, and that's usually what an oath is that that he, or they say, okay, he's taking an oath that he's going to do a certain thing. Now, our custom is to say bli neder, right? You say, I'll meet you at 8 o'clock, bli neder, right? You got to watch, you got to be careful with what you're saying. It's very important to be careful with our words, because if you take it as an oath, it's like mamish serious. If you don't keep it, and if you don't fulfill it, it's very serious. Okay?
Hi.
Oh, hi. Okay. Do you mind going and shouting up to Judy to tell her that Ben is here? 1 minute, Ben.
Judy.
Louder.
Judy. Ben is here. Ben.
Okay. Thank you. So, so this verse says it's sort of like a blank mitzvah card. In other words, it's something that you normally would have been allowed to do. You've taken this on, right? So now this is like a mitzvah for you. You've got to treat it with the same sanctity, the same kedusha, like any other mitzvah. Okay?
It's like a mitzvah, is a mitzvah.
It's now a mitzvah for you to fulfill this.
When you're doing it, it's as if you're doing it.
There's like, it says, Lo yachil dvaro, you may not profane your words, right? Kechol hayotzei mipiv yaseh. This is now your mitzvah. So if somebody said that he's going to abstain from cheesecake, let's say. As a matter of fact, there's a story with the Rosh Yeshiva, this Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. He was widowed, and then he got remarried. He got married again. So Shavuos morning, he invited, after the night of learning and davening, he invited 3 students to come to his house for a little kiddush. Now, his wife prepared that little kiddush, and what did she have on the table? Cheese blimtzes, okay, Shavuos, right? And he had taken an oath, for some reason or other, for some personal reason, that he was going to stay off that kind of food.
This is his wife?
He himself.
He was one of the students.
No, the Rosh Yeshiva himself. So when she went into the kitchen, he had 3 students there. He quickly did Hatarat Nidarim. He made them a beis din. He made them into a court. He said, I have to have you annul my vow. And he did have to write the story.
No, but
This is an uncle back from the kitchen. He was able to eat already. He was able to eat the cheese princess. So then afterwards, when she went back into the kitchen, he told the students that why did he annul the vow? Because he just recently married this woman. And if he would tell her he's not eating it because he had taken a vow, she might feel bad. She prepared this food for him, right? And, for her new husband, etc. So just so that she shouldn't feel bad that he's not eating it, he annulled his vow. But later on, and how much later, but once his relationship with his wife was more established, he took the vow again, by the way. Okay? So there's a lot of discussion about this whole matter of vows, like what gives you the power to take something simple. Let's say, for example, you can take an object and make it kadosh. You could make it hektish. If somebody says he's donating this to the Beit HaMikdash, from that moment on, that object is now kadosh. He may not use it for his own benefits. He's not allowed to drink from the cup. He's not allowed to do any of that. Okay. So, what gives you the power to do that? Right? If somebody says he's not going to, going to eat a certain food, that food is like prohibited to him, just like something non-kosher. Okay.
Does somebody have an obligation to tell you that this is something you've already made? Say if you weren't going to eat cheesecake and you told me of this, if I see you about to eat cheesecake, is it within my power to say, hey?
You should say, didn't you take a vow?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. What were you going to say?
Takes an oath not to have grape products.
A Nazir takes an oath to be a Nazir, and the Torah specifies what he's not allowed to do. Right? Okay. So, for example, a person can take a vow a person has the ability to take time and turn it into something kadosh. For example, you can accept Shabbos early, right? After a certain point in the afternoon, you can accept Shabbos early, and you're actually making that time kadosh. It's now Shabbos for you. Okay. You can end Shabbos later too,
yes.
Right?
How long can you let it go on for?
Well, till Tuesday.
Really?
Yeah, Damsha never often makes. I don't know if I would advise you to try that because you might forget, and by mistake end up doing work on what you made Shabbos. So you can sanctify time, you can sanctify objects, right? You can sanctify your money, and you can sanctify something which is perfectly normally permissible, and you turn it into something that's prohibited by taking a vow not to eat this or something like that. People sometimes make vows, like they get into a fight with each other, and somebody vows and says, "I'm never stepping into your," he says, "I'm never stepping into your house again." Okay. He swears that he's never going to step into his friend's house, or he's never going to eat by him, or so on. Right? That's a vow, and lo yachil dvaro. He's not allowed to profane his words. Namish has to keep his word, right? Unless he goes ahead and goes to a chacham or to a court of three, and has it annulled.
We annul the vows of Rosh Hashanah. That's annulling this.
That's for past. It's not really. We do that, right? But the last paragraph that you read over there, right? You're basically making a declaration that that if you're going to take on any vows in the future, you're annulling them right now. But practically, halacha, that doesn't really annul. If you today were to make a vow, you're still obligated with the vow. Okay.
Until that meeting.
Until you have it annulled, because it doesn't have to be the same people.
No, I'm saying when you do that, does it annul what you took an oath for that year?
If you read in the Siddur, right, it's basically it annuls. It does annul what you did in the past year. Yes.
For example, if you said, I'm not going to that person's house, not necessarily I'm not eating cheesecake.
If it's a specific vow, it's very possible that what you need to do is you need to have, because look, it says over here, okay, any vow, oath, or prohibition, even a prohibition to derive benefit which I have imposed upon myself or upon others by any expression of prohibition, or any utterance that is issued from my mouth, or that I vowed and resolved in my heart, even to perform a certain mitzvah, or any good practice which I did 3 times, but did not expressly state that it shall be without the force of a vow, whether it's a commitment I made concerning myself or with regard to others, both those which are known to me or which have already been forgotten by me, all these I regret them in retrospect from the moment I made them, and I request and ask nullification for them. Okay? And it goes on into, and then it says, I'm not regretting all the good things that I did. I'm just regretting that I didn't say I'll do it bli neder, or without taking an oath or an affirmation. So I'm asking you to annul these vows, right? All these things that I've mentioned, I regret them, okay? And whether they were things that pertain to the body or to the soul or to money. Now, according to law, it says, one who regrets his vows, this is part of the statement that you're making, one who regrets his vows and seeks annulment must state the particulars of the vow. Know, however, my masters, that they are many, and it's impossible to specify them. And I do not request nullification for those vows which cannot be annulled. Therefore, consider them as if I specified them. Okay, so and then the Beis Din answers that they should be annulled for you, etc., right? Okay. However, it doesn't mean that you can say, and the last paragraph you say, I'm making a public declaration that I nullify from now on all the vows, all the oaths, prohibitions, in a sense, and commitments in thought, which I will take upon myself, except the vows to fast which are made at mincha prayer. And if I should forget the stipulations of this declaration and make any further vow henceforth, for now I regret them and declare that they are null and void. They have no force or effect, and they shall not be binding at all. I regret them all from now and for all time. So, the question does that, so let's say, for example, you tell me now today, oh, Sholem, I promise you that I'm going to do this and this, right? I've taken an oath that I'm going to do this and this for you. And in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I already annulled it on Erev Rosh Hashanah, right? It doesn't work like that. You can't do that, okay? You can't, this is not a blanket permission to do that, okay? As a matter of fact, I once read somewhere, I don't remember where, but there were rabbis who were not in favor of the Kol Nidre prayer, because in the Kol Nidre we also say, that I declare that whatever vows I might make and so on, I don't intend to keep them and so on, right? Annulled and cancelled and so on, right? So the thing is that Kol Nidre prayer is basically really, if I remember correctly, it's Jews in different times of history were during the Crusades and And other times they were by the Romans and so on. They were told, swear allegiance to this and this, to such and such an idol, or give up, So we're sort of saying, Hashem, and if chas v'shalom, I don't have the strength to withstand whatever I might have to withstand in those circumstances, I'm declaring now that Hashem, I'm totally with you. I'm not wavering in my faith.
Yeah, because shouldn't every Jew be given sort of clean slate on Yom Kippur and the opportunity, because they don't know what Chas v'Shalom is going to come up in the future. They should all be equal in front of Hashem.
So we do that. That's why we understand that's what we do. But you have to be careful not to misunderstand and think that the way the text reads, all vows I might make in the future are being annulled right from now. Now, historically, Rav Steinzal says that there was a period where a lot of people were making vows. It was a pretty common thing that people were making vows, and the rabbis actually campaigned very seriously against it back in the time of the Talmud. And they even went so far as to say, like Rabbi Meir says, that making a vow is like building a private altar, and keeping the vow is like offering a sacrifice to an idol, or like offering a sacrifice outside the temple, which you're not allowed to do. Okay, and therefore, don't make any vows. Period. Even if you have with the best of intentions and so on. So you have a very strong opinion over here, right? Yet at the same time, there's a lot of power in making a vow, right? It's there. You make a vow, and this is it's now kadosh. It's a very serious thing, and there are times which in the idea, like the Ishbisser was saying, is there are times where a person feels that they're stuck in their avodat Hashem, they're stuck somewhere in their service of God, and that they need something really strong to give them a good push forward, and they decide to take on a vow, right? And it's something between you and yourself. In other words, you feel that I need to do this. This is going to give me the strength to carry on in my service of God, and so on. So this Ishbisser explains. So Hashem is basically saying, okay, here's a blank mitzvah card. Go ahead, right? You fill it in. Okay, I'm giving you the power to do this. So then he says, well, then how come we can have it annulled? Well, he says either the person has changed and what was going to work well for him at that time when he made the vow, maybe it's just not working well for him anymore, or other circumstances have changed. In other words, there is room also, the same power that gives you the ability to make a vow, the same power gives man the ability to annul it. Right? The very fact that we are connected, in other words, what gives me a mortal human being the power to sanctify something? Because we're created in the image of God. God is holy, and God is giving us this power to do this. Okay? A non-Jew can also take a vow and he has to keep it. Okay?
Baruch Shechino.
What?
Baruch Shechino. That was my question that you just answered.
Yeah. It's a power that's given to human beings, right? So, and even somebody who isn't a tzaddik and can't create worlds can make a change in the reality of his life by taking a vow. Right? You've changed the reality. Before this was just an ordinary cup, right? If you were to have taken this and made a vow that you're giving this to the temple, you've changed the reality of this cup. It's no longer yours. You've changed it.
When
What?
building is said it's hektish. Buildings.
Yeah.
Like a shul.
Like, for example, next door. Yeah. You see on signs, right, hektish. That means that whoever donated it, if you look at the sign over the door over here, Toronto, hektish lo yimacher, it may never be sold. In other words, the people who are running the Amuta in charge of that shul and so on, you can come and offer them $10 million for that piece of property if you want. It may not be sold.
Couldn't be sold as a shul.
It may not. Could it be sold as a shul?
Meaning, let's say you're yeshiva.
If I want to buy it
buy it and use it as a shul.
What kind of deal we would have to make, I don't know.
I'm saying technically.
But technically, I'm saying you are asking technically. I don't know the technicality answer to that.
I mean, okay.
Okay, theoretically,
Maybe I didn't say that.
that space is not to be used.
And I was just asking about the ownership of a different community. Let's say the community that's running it now.
So the ownership may be the reason I'm hesitant to answering is because they don't really own it. You know what I mean? There are people running it, there are people managing it, and so on. But do they own it? They can probably hand over their management rights possibly. Okay. So
for that example, who did they make an oath to?
that man he made an oath to God. And he established that this was the other room of this house. All the houses here in this neighborhood basically were two rooms. You see the thick walls? That's where the house ended. Everything on the other side of this thick wall is an add-on already. Okay. So,
I'll say.
Okay, yeah. So that's the big issue. That's one of the big issues about vows. And so I said we were going to go back to the first verse. So if you notice that usually it starts. How does it usually start? It usually starts by Daber Hashem al Moshe Lemor. God said to Moshe, "Speak." Vayomer Hashem al Moshe Lemor. Over here, it doesn't start this way. It starts off by Daber Moshe el Rashi Matot. Moshe Rabbeinu comes and he speaks to the Matot, right? And it doesn't say. It doesn't start off with Hashem went. Hashem told them to go and say this.
Gather everyone.
Okay.
Doesn't say gather all the heads of the tribes.
Doesn't say right. That usually is not written anyway. But it's an exception when it is written. Okay. So that's one thing to pay attention to, right? And furthermore, we know the usual procedure of when Moshe Rabbeinu was teaching Torah, right? First, he would speak to the elders and to the leaders, and first he would give it over to Aaron and his children. Then he would give it in the presence of the 70 elders, and then it was taught to all the Jews. However, over here, the princes of the tribes are mentioned specifically. So Rashi says that they were being particularly honored. Okay? So why are they being singled out over here? Because this is the procedure that was followed all the time. So why are they being singled out over here? So Rashi says, because this is to teach us that when somebody makes an oath, he can have it annulled either by a Yachid Mumche, a single person who is an expert in these laws. And if there isn't an expert, if there isn't like a real Chacham around, so then three ordinary people can annul the vow. Okay? So that's one thing that is being said over here.
But they don't have to be Jewish?
No, they have to be Jewish. Okay? Another thing that Rashi points out is that Moshe Rabbeinu says, Zeh hadavar. This is the word. This is Zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem. This is what God commanded. Right? So Rashi says that what's the difference between Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy and the prophecy of all the other prophets? All the other prophets, when they spoke, they said, Ko Amar Hashem, which means this is sort of as close as I can get, as close as I can tell you, this is what God said. But Moshe Rabbeinu was on the Madrega, he was on the level that he could say, Zeh, exactly this. Okay?
Korma is so says. Like
So
says Hashem.
So says Hashem.
And Moshe Rabbeinu is Hashem says.
Zeh. This is what God says, right? Okay.
It was the thing with the opaque glass.
Because he was on a whole other level of prophecy, right?
All the other prophets didn't have a clear prophecy.
They didn't have clear prophecy in the same way that Moshe Rabbeinu did. Okay. So now I'm going to learn a little bit from the Rebbe on the Parshiot. Okay. Just a couple of things. If you look at Rashi in verse 3, the first Rashi in Pasuk Gimel. Do you have Rashi in your Chumash? Yeah, good. Verse 3. Okay. So Rashi explains, did you find it?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody? Says Rashi, Neder, what is a Neder? Haomeir harei alai konam. Now, what does that mean? Somebody uses the word konam. He says, I take upon myself konam, okay, that shelo ochal, that I won't eat, or shelo esed davar ploni, or that I won't do a certain thing, right? So the Rebbe explains, what is the meaning of the word konam?
Would that be a derivative from Kohanim?
No, it's a difference. This is with a kuf, that's with a kaf. So he says that the word konam is relates to sacrifices, relates to korbanot. Meaning to say that when a person takes upon himself a vow that he's not going to eat something, for example, right? So what he's doing is that he's basically saying that thing is now holy to him like a sacrifice is. And just like he's not allowed to eat from a sacrifice outside the Beit HaMikdash and so on, he's not allowed to eat that. It's like separated from him in some holy way. Okay?
That's something that he prohibits himself.
He prohibits himself, right?
Somebody could say, I'll be in shul on time.
No, hold on. Let's just first work with the konam, okay? So the Rebbe says sometimes a person has a need to separate himself from certain pleasures of the world or things, material pleasures. And he has a need to even make it prohibited to himself by taking a vow. Because he's afraid that if he doesn't do that, he's afraid that if he's going to continue his involvement with that particular thing, it'll just drag him further into materialism and it'll stop him spiritually. it will interfere with his spiritual growth. So, at the same time, if a person feels that he has to separate from something physical because it's causing him to falter spiritually, so the word konam teaches us that he should not look at that thing, for example, let's say with the cheesecake, he should not look at that thing as something unholy, but rather he should look at it as being something that is holy, and therefore he cannot have it. Okay? In other words, says the Rebbe, the person should meditate on the spiritual root, the exalted spiritual root of that physical thing. In other words, meditate on it and see it back at its source, right? And then you will perceive it as being something that is kadosh, something that is holy, and that you're not allowed to use it because it is kadosh. Okay? That's one idea I wanted to share, okay, from the Rebbe. And then also, the Rebbe speaks about the name of the parsha, Matot. And what is the meaning of Matot? Rashi Matot, the heads of the tribes, right? Now there are two terms that are used for the tribes in the Torah, Shvatim and Matot. Now, both of them mean sticks. Shevet is a stick, and Mateh is a stick. The difference between a Shevet and a Mateh, says the Rebbe, is that a Shevet is still fresh, it still has some of the moisture of the tree that it was cut from. Okay? Mateh is when that shevet is already dried out and it's become hard, now it's called mateh. Okay? So, these two differences, so why are we called by both names? Why are the tribes called both Shvatim and also Matot? What's the lesson in that? So both of them are terms used to refer to the Jewish people, right? Shevet is like you still can recognize the tree in the branch or the stick that you cut off the tree. You still can recognize the tree in it. Okay. It still has the
Freshness.
the freshness, the liquids of the tree are still there, the sap and so on, right? So he says, for example, so the term Shvatim sort of indicates a situation where it's recognizable that we are branches, that we're connected to our Father in heaven, to the tree. In other words, in the Shevet, you still, even though it's been cut off from the tree, you still can see the connection between the Shevet and the tree. Okay? Mateh is where the stick is dried out, right? And the connection to the tree that it's coming from is not so revealed. Okay.
So it's like connoting like the spiritual levels that they're on.
So both of them are connected. They're both connected to the tree that they come from, but in the case of the Shevet, the connection is still apparent. because it still has the moisture, it still has the sap of the tree, and so on, right? In the case of the Matteh, the connection is obviously there because it comes from this tree, but it's not evident, it's not easily visible. So he says the Shevet signifies our relationship with Hashem in the time that we had the Beit HaMikdash, and the Matteh signifies the time after the destruction, when we're further away from everything, seemingly more disconnected from our divine source, right? But the fact is that our connection might not be visible, but we're called shevet. We are like a stick that is dry already. In other words, what's the difference between a fresh cut branch and a stick? Which is harder? The stick is harder. Understand? The stick is got more strength in it. The Matteh is still flexible and so on, right?
So you can't burn
So,
the fresh one can't burn.
The fresh one can burn, true. But he's saying that is dafke in this situation where our connection is more concealed. That's where you see the strength of our connection comes out even more. Right? In other words, the maybe my being Jewish right now, maybe it might not look so connected. It might not be so apparent, but it's more like a dry. It might even be more like a dry stick. But that dry stick is hard. It's a strong stick. In other words, that connection with Hashem is strong, and it remains strong even when it's not easily apparent. So the lesson of the Parsha being called Matot is basically is to remember, we have a very strong connection. Okay. Now, why is this? Why Rashi said that this parsha Moshe Rabbeinu was giving particular kavod to the tribes, to the leaders of the tribes. Why you want to give them kavod? You could have done the same thing in any other parsha. In any other parsha, you could have said Vaydaber Moshe el Rashi Hamatot. Why particularly in the mitzvah of oaths, right? So going back to the Nazir, if you remember that when the Nazir, let's say a Nazir became a Nazir for 30 days, that's usually the standard minimum amount of time for being a Nazir. When he finishes being a Nazir, he has to bring 2 sacrifices. One of them is a sin offering, a korban chatat. Remember why? So why does the Nazir have to bring a korban chatat? He did such a big mitzvah. He was a Nazir for a certain amount of time. So one explanation is Hashem gave you enough things that are forbidden already. Why are you adding to the list of things that are prohibited? So even though you did a mitzvah by being a Nazir, in a certain sense, it was a mitzvah that maybe you shouldn't have done, because God already gave you plenty of things that you're not allowed to eat or so on or drink. Why are you taking on an additional one? That's one explanation why he brings the sin offering. The other one is you've already taken this vow of leading a more sanctified life. Why are you stopping? Why are you stopping to be a Nazir? So you see that there's a double edge over here, right? So on the one hand,
You're saying you shouldn't do it, but now that you did it, you shouldn't stop.
Right. So on the one hand, the taking of a vow is not so positive, because Hashem already told you don't eat milk and meat, and don't do this, and don't do that, and don't do that. Why are why are you taking on an additional vow, an additional prohibition? On the other hand, we do find that the Torah says, sanctify yourself with those things that are permissible to you. Right? So the Rebbe explains, it depends on what level you're at. If you're serving Hashem correctly and you're following the path of God, like, straight like an arrow. So concerning such a person, the Torah is saying, don't take any additional prohibitions on yourself. You've got enough. You're doing well in your service of Hashem. Just keep going with the way you've been going until now. But if somebody's really having trouble and he's not complete in the service of Hashem, and he needs to take that vow. For such a person, the Torah says, sanctify yourself with things that are permitted. Right? So, as Moshe is speaking to the Rashi Hamatot, to the leaders of the tribes, right? The leaders of the tribes generally were people of a very high spiritual status. These were people that they wouldn't be taking vows. For them, taking a vow was not something that the Torah desires. But Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking to them and saying, you are the leaders of the tribes. You have a responsibility to your people to elevate them to such a level that they also shouldn't need to take any vows. Okay? So that's the implication that is involved over here. Now, I don't remember which Rebbe this was with. Maybe you'll remember the story. I remember the story. Basically, this Rebbe, I think it might have been one of the Vishnu Rebbe's, came to this town for Shabbos, where there were some Hasidim, and they said to the Rebbe, we need your help because we want to build a mikveh, and we just don't have the funds. And the Rebbe said, well, are there no people in town that can really help out with the cost? And they said, yeah, there is this one Yid that he's got the funds, but he's very stingy. And he says, well, what else can you tell me about this Yid? He said, he really doesn't have any shalom bayis. He and his wife are like out to strangle each other all the time. So the Rebbe says, okay, comes Shabbos. The Rebbe calls up this Jew for an aliyah. And after the aliyah, makes a mishaberach. Bavur shenadav. So he turns to the guy, so are you giving a donation? And he's just remained silent. The Rebbe says, we need a donation for the mikveh. Just remain silent. So the Rebbe whispers in his ear, I want you to know something. It says in the Gemara that if somebody promises money to tzedakah and he doesn't keep his promise, then his wife is going to die. So the guy said, really? For real? So the Rebbe says, yes. So you want to make a big donation for the mikveh? He says, yeah. Okay, how much is the mikveh? 10,000? She says, I'm giving 9,000. Okay? And the Rebbe makes the mishaberach, right? And usually the one when you say the mishaberach, you should actually say bli neder, because if you don't, it's a neder. It's a little bit because the words are about, Anyway, the guy goes home and he's thinking to himself, okay, let's see what's going to happen. In the meantime, his wife is strong like a horse. He comes running to the Rebbe and he says, I don't understand. You told me that if I promise a donation and don't pay, that she's going to die. She's strong like a horse. The Rebbe says, oh, I forgot to tell you something. I forgot to tell you that it's only if you don't want your wife to die, then the punishment is that your wife is going to die. But you want your wife to die, so this teaching in the Talmud doesn't apply. So he says, so what should I do? So he says, well, let's work on getting you to a place where you don't want your wife to die, and then she'll die. So he says, well, what should I do? He says, well, when's the last time you bought her a new dress? Oh, years. Go buy her a nice dress, bring her a dress. He goes and gets the dress, comes home with the dress, Chanale, look at what I got you. She's like shocked. So she goes ahead and cooks him a nice meal. He's shocked. This is interesting, right? Well, he doesn't love her yet, but a few days later he goes ahead and gets her another little gift. And she's mamish every day, she's doing something more for him. And their relationship is finally good again. And then she starts to get sick. So I'm very sick. So he runs to the Rebbe. He says, Rebbe, my wife is very sick. She's dying. Help me. So the Rebbe says, I want it. She says, no, but I don't want it. We're on good terms now. So the Rebbe says, oh, okay, then pay up your donation. So he managed to get the money for the mikveh and make shalom bayis. I think it's in Sikurei Hasidim. I'll have to find it. You heard it from Rebbe Pinko also?
That's one of the stories you put on YouTube.
Did you put on? Yeah. So do you remember which Rebbe?
I have to listen to the story. I don't remember the details.
But did you when you?
If he said it at the time,
no,
he said it one Shabbos, and then the next day I recorded the story.
And you remember the next Rebbe it was?
It was
Okay.
6 years ago.
Okay. Anyway.
Some projects.
Okay, so the Dapshal Vidal is that speech is very holy. In Bereshit, where it says that Hashem breathed a spirit of life into the nose of Adam, so the Targum translates that spirit of life as a spirit of speech. And Hashem gave us the gift of speech. Speech is very, very holy. One of the explanations why we call our language the Shon HaKodesh, besides the simple reason that it's the language of the Torah, is called the Shon HaKodesh to remind us that Lashon, that speech, is Kodesh. With speech, you can make something holy. With speech, you could make a vow. You can turn an object. You could turn time. You can even turn parts of your being holy. Or, for example, even space. Let's say you designate a certain space that this is where I'm going to. Whenever I sit over here, I'm going to be learning Torah. Right? So that space, like a makom kavua, right? That space becomes like, or for example, you build a building and you make it into a beis medrash, a house of study. You've made that space a makom kadosh. It's a holy place. Okay? It's a holy place, right? You can do that also with a corner in your house. I know that I was reading that the man who was the moil for Netzach, that certain chair that every night when he would say Kriyat Shema Al Mitan, Shema going to sleep, he would come in that chair and do his Kriyat Shema Al Mitan. Very, very seriously. Like he would spend a lot of time every night in Kriyat Al Mitan. So you can designate a space in your life. You can designate an activity, but don't do it with the words of, I'm making a vow. Okay? In other words, because Rav Steinsaltz says, in the Gemara, when Rav Meir says that if you take a vow, it's like you're building an altar, question, to whom did you build this altar? What was your real motivation in this altar? Because a lot of they make these vows, they get upset, either with one another, or somebody gets upset with his animal, or somebody gets upset because he can't open the door, right? And he swears. So did you make the altar to God, or did you make the altar to your ego? Alter ego. Okay? Did you make it to Hashem, or was it to your ego? The vow is as if you've offered a sacrifice on that altar. To whom did you make a sacrifice? Right? Because there's all kinds of idols. There's an idol of anger, there's an idol of lust, there's all kinds of idols in our lives. There's an idol of money too. There's all kinds of idols. Okay? So if you're not on the level where you can do this like with complete consciousness and complete honest will, okay, so then it's best to avoid making vows. Okay. And but don't think that you can sanctify things. You can sanctify things, but just don't do it with the words of I'm making the vow.
How often is it Matos Matai?
Most of the time.
And why is that?
Because they depending on when the holidays come out. If the holidays come out in such a way that, because whenever it's a Yom Tov, Pesach and Sukkot, we suspend the Parshiot reading. The Shabbos of Pesach, Shabbos of Sukkot, we don't read the Parshat HaShavua. We read portions that pertain to the holiday. Okay, so there are 53 Parshiot in the Torah, right? There are 53 Shabbatot in the year, but you're not actually reading the Parsha every Shabbos. Huh? Catch up. And then last year, sometimes when it's a leap year, we have a situation where we're not reading the same parshas as being read outside of Israel. Because if you have, let's say, Yom Tov, let's say, comes on Shabbos, okay, or let's say, so we're gonna be finished with Yom Tov before the next Shabbos, okay. Whereas in Chutz La'aretz, they have 8 days, right? Or in the case of Sukkot, 9 days, right? Sukkot and Shmini Atzeret, so they could miss more Shabbatot than we do for reading at a parsha. So eventually it evens out. Okay. Thank you for being here. Next Wednesday, I'm leaving next Thursday morning. I hope that I will be packed early enough in the day that I should be able to get to class next week. Next week we start Sefer Dvarim, right? This Shabbos, by the way, is Shabbos Mevorchim, right? And it's going to be Rosh Chodesh, I think, on what day is going to be Rosh Chodesh? It's going to be Rosh Chodesh, I think, on Monday. Huh?
Yes, Monday.
On Monday, right? And the month of Av is all about, it's a heavy month, till Tu B'Av, and it's about fixing hearing, and because that's when the spies came back, was on Tisha B'Av. So we should be blessed to hear good things and to be careful not to hear anything negative. Okay, so we're giving Kiddush this Shabbos, by the way, because my father's yard side is next week.
That means my grandfather's yard side is coming. Yeah. The grandfather's yard side, I think.
So I'm giving Kiddush this Shabbos at my Cool. So you see. Okay. You know where my shul is? No? Have you met Barak? Have you met Barak? Okay, call to everybody.
I've certainly heard of it, but I've never been.
Okay, shalom to all your viewers. Call to.
Yeah, for a minute.